welcome to my channel. I'm Rosa Maria. Today I have a great tutorial, and this tutorial is learning how to make a zipper tote bag. This is great for beginners. It don't take too long to make. You could take it Saturday afternoon to complete this project. And I just wanted to show you the inside, what it looks like. It has the inner pocket, as you can see, where you can place your cell phone or any essential items. Easy to close, and also it has box corners on the bottom. So let's get started on this sewing project. Tools and materials you're going to be needing to start this project is fabric of your choice, lining of your choice, and also interface. Hot ruler, some sewing pins, fabric clips. You can choose a pair of scissors or a rotary cutter to cut your fabric, and a erasable fabric pen, a turning tool to turn your fabric, and a coordinating thread. The zipper that I'm using here is a pull zipper, and this is a 16-inch length, and a ruler. Before you start cutting your fabric, make sure that you iron your fabric very well and remove all the creases. First, for the inner pocket, you're going to cut it 8 inches by 12.5 inches. And you're going to cut 2 pieces for the handle for your fabric, and of course it's going to be 3.5 inches by 18 inches long, and you're only going to be cutting 2 pieces of interface, and they'll be the exact same cut as the handle, 3.5 inches by 18 inches. The final cutting that you'll be needing is you'll be cutting 2 of your fabric, and you'll be cutting 11 inches by 15 inches long, and you'll be cutting 2 pieces of your lining, the same exact 11 inches by 15 inches, and then finally you need 2 pieces of your interface, also the exact measurement as your lining and your fabric. Let's start here with our handles. So here I have my first handle. I'm going to take the printed side and I'm going to face it down. And the interface, you have one side of the interface where it's a little bit more bumpy and one side that is smoother. So the area where it's more bumpy, like here, we're going to face that bumpy area, because that's the sticky side, onto the fabric. And I'm going to flip it around here. I don't have a cloth presser, so for demonstration purposes I'm not going to use it, but I'm going to show you. You just iron. So by ironing it, the interface will be sticking onto the back of the fabric. You can press it very well. And you could do a little testing to make sure. If you see that it's still not iron completely onto the fabric, just give it a nice iron and some steam. But just keep doing that until you see that this piece is already adhesive to the fabric, as you can see. So let me just give it a nice press. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hot ruler, and this is going to be very helpful for me. If you're able and you're good at eyeballing, we're going to fold this 1/2 inch. So this hot ruler has the inch here already marked, and it makes it easier for me to fold the fabric and at the same time not burn my finger. So Continue doing the same thing to the rest of the end here. Make sure it's 1/2 inch. And press. And now we're going to do the other side. Let me flip it over. 1/2 inch. And do the same thing and just iron that 1/2 inch fold. Let me just slide this all the way down here and use my markings to make sure I have my 1/2 inch fold. Okay, here, yes. And press iron. Okay. Now that I have both ends pressed, now the next step is we are going to fold it again. We're going to sandwich it, as you can see here. And then I'm going to take my iron again and give it a nice little press. Nice little press here. And once you have that press done, because you want that sandwich, the fabric sandwich together, both of those 4 ends, and I'm going to take my fabric clip and I'm going to start to clip these both ends together. Now that I have that ends clipped it, we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we are going to top stitch here on top and also top stitch to close the opening here of both of these folding edges. So sew here across, and then we're going to go back here and sew across. So let's go to the sewing machine. The stitch length I'm using to stitch the handle here is 3.5 inches. I'm going to back stitch, as you can see, to secure the fabric to the thread. And just remove your fabric clips as you're going down stitching. What I usually do is, here when I come to the end, I just tilt the fabric, lift my foot presser, lower it down, and to continue to sew to the other end, and then stitch one more, lift the foot presser again, and just lie the foot presser. I went a little bit off, that's okay. I'll bring you right back to the edge of the fabric here and continue sewing. I'm coming to the end, and now I'm going to back stitch. And this is how it should look like when you finish stitching your handle strap. So the stitch looks great. Once you finish stitching both of your handles, let's put these 2 handles aside. Take your outer fabric, I have both of them here, and make sure that you iron the interface, which is very important. So once you iron your interface on both of the outer fabric, The next step is I am going to fold the fabric in half. And using my hand to kind of make my marking here of the center of the fabric. So I'm going to take my sewing pin here, and the sewing pin here is going to show me where my center is. So here is my center. And now I'm going to take my erasable marker for the fabric and my ruler, and I'm going to measure 2 inches excuse me, 2 inches away from the sewing pin. Here's my little marking, and I'm going to mark it right here to make right here. And again, do the same thing to the other side. 2.5 inch, and here it is, 2.5 inch. Once I mark my markings, I am going to take my handle. First, let me just show you so you can see. This is the 2.5 inch away from the center of the fabric, and here's the other side, 2.5 inch away from the center. So now I'm going to take one of my handles, and I'm going to place the handle right next to, as you can see here, the sewing pin. And I'm going to take my fabric clip and use it to secure it, and then do the same thing to this side, making sure that I have it nicely centered against the sewing pin here. So you can see, make sure your handle looks like this. Okay, so now we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we are just going to stitch the handle onto the outer fabric. So let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, here in the sewing machine, I'm going to remove my fabric clip, and I'm just going to make sure that my foot presser is against the edge here of the fabric so I can start. I'm going to back stitch and then remove the sewing pin, and I'm gonna sew twice over here where the handle is to make sure that the handle is mostly secure, especially if you're going to be putting in items that might be a little bit too heavy. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next one. Let me make sure that I retrieve my thread from the bottom so I can continue to sew. Okay, let me remove my sewing pin and my fabric clip here. Okay, everything is nicely aligned. Okay, back stitch and sew over. Now back again, and the last one, and then I'll do a little back stitch here just to secure everything, and I am done. So this is how it's going to look like for both of the handles. And now you have to do the same thing, attach, not attach, but stitch the other handle to the outer fabric. As you can see, we finished stitching the handle to the outer fabric for both. So make sure you complete that for both. And now we're going to put these two aside, and we are going to take our inner pocket and we're going to face it. Make sure you take the print aside and fold it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fabric pen over here, and I'm just going to make a little two markings here. And the reason why I am making that marking is is to let me know that this is a side that we need to leave it open, that we cannot stitch in order to turn the pocket inside out. So I'm using again my pen and with my marker to remind me, do not sew here, leave it open. And I'm going to take my fabric clip. Let me just put this in the center. So again, we're going to sew here, then all here, and right here. And a reminder again, we leave this opening. So let's go and take it to the sewing machine now. I have here the flip presser against the side or the edge of the fabric. Back stitch. Remove your fabric clips as you are sewing. I'm coming here to the corner. Okay, one more stitch. Let me turn this or tilt it. Remove this fabric clip. Okay, now tilted. And now remember, this is where we're going to stop. I'm going to remove the sewing pin right here, and then I'm going to back stitch. Okay, let me get my thread up. Okay, got it. And now we are going to just sew this small portion here of the fabric. Back stitch, here back stitch. Okay, and we're done. So remember again to make sure that you leave this opening not stitch so we can turn the fabric inside out. Now that we finished stitching the inner pocket here, we are going to now turn the fabric inside out. Get my hand in here. Okay, now I'm going to use my little tool here to help me poke out the corners here, and I'm going to be very gentle because I don't want to poke it too much where the turn tool will come sticking out. Okay. Let's see if I can get this one. Bear with me. Okay, I got that corner out. Let me try to get these corner out using my thumb. And let me just go back in there. Okay. Let me try over here. Okay. Alrighty, so now we're gonna take the opening and we're gonna close it. As you can see, it's kind of folded there. I did the little two edges together. And now I'm gonna take my fabric clip and I am going to use it to secure the fabric together. And then we're gonna go to the sewing machine and we're gonna close this opening. I'm here at the sewing machine now, and I'm going to start to sew, back stitch, and remove my fabric clip. And back stitch. Okay, so now that we finish stitching the opening we had for the inner pocket. The inner pocket is done. We finished stitching the opening. And make sure you kind of give it a nice press with your iron just to make sure that any creases has been removed, and you kind of flatten it out. Now I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to take one of your lining pieces, and we're going to fold the lining piece in half. Use my little fingers here to kind of mark it over here to create that little crease, that fold. I am going to place the sewing pin right here in the middle. That is showing me this is where the center of the fabric is. And now I'm going to take my inner pocket and my ruler, and we want to measure here at least let me see if I get it, at least 2 inches away. So I'm going to mark over here with my eraser pen that this is just 2 inches over here. And then to make sure that my inner pocket is centered properly, I'm going to fold this, as you can see here, and I'm going to use this as my center, and I'm going to center it right here along, as you can see the marking as 2 inches, and here is the center. And now I am going to take my sewing pins, and I'm going to secure the inner pocket to the lining. I think there's enough pins here. So we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we are only going to stitch here at the end of the inner pocket here below in the bottom and on top, and just leave this alone. This is going to be our opening for us to put our cell phones or any other items that we want to put in our inner pocket here. So make sure, again, we're going to stitch here in the side, bottom, and work our way up. I lined up my foot presser against, as you see, the edge of the inner pocket here, and I'm going to start to sew, back stitch, and continue to sew. And I'm coming to the end. I'm going to tilt and shift, and then continue to sew. One more stitch here. Let me tilt and remove the sewing pin. Back stitch, and we are done. As you can see, this is how the pocket should look like. So hopefully you can see it closely at the camera. So now we're done, and let's go back to the sewing table. As you can see here, we finished stitching the inner pocket onto the lining. Now that that's done, we're going to move on to the next step. Just take both of your linings that you have and put it aside, and then we are going to work on the outer fabric. Take your zipper that you have, and I just wanted to show you something on the zipper. If your zipper is long, or you don't have the correct size zipper for the bag, that's okay, because if you have a zipper that is longer, you can shorten the length of it. So over here, I marked where I wanted my zipper to end, and I stitched over here, and the reason why I stitch it to prevent me from, when I'm opening the zipper, for it to come out. So that's like a stopper right there for the zipper not to pass there. So make your little stitch over here on the sewing machine to mark where you don't want the zipper to come off the zipper. I'm not sure what to call this, but it'll come out. So this is to prevent it. And as you can see, this is the length of my zipper here. And I made a little marking over here to show where I'm gonna cut it all, cut the extra zipper. So take the zipper, as you can see here, with a zipper pull here, face it down, and you want to line it up against the outer fabric over here. And I'm going to take my fabric clip here, and I'm going to secure the zipper onto the outer fabric, because then we're going to take it to the sewing machine. And when we take it to the sewing machine, we are going to stitch the zipper onto the outer fabric. So let me just get a couple of more clips over here to secure this. All right, so let's take it to the sewing machine so we can stitch the zipper to the outer fabric. Okay. As you can see here, I am at the sewing machine. I just opened up the zipper a little bit so I'm able to sew. So have your foot presser right aligned at the edge here of the zipper. And I'm going to start to sew. I'm going to back stitch. I'm coming right here near the zipper. So now I'm going to lift my foot presser, and then I'm going to close my zipper here. It makes it easier to sew and not to have that zipper in the way. And I'm going to continue to sew. Back stitch, just secure the thread to the zipper and out of fabric. Okay, and this is what it looks like. And let's go to the table. Okay, now we're going to start to sew. I'm going to back stitch now and continue to sew. Here I feel my zipper here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my foot presser up and then zip my zipper close. Let me see if I can do this a little bit better. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, now. And now that I've done that, then it makes it easier for me to continue sewing. Okay, now we're done. Back stitch. And we finish attaching the lining to the zipper. As you can see here, I finished stitching the lining onto the zipper. We're going to open it. Just make sure that your inner pocket is facing this direction, as you can see. And now we are going to fold. I'm just going to take all this and I'm going to fold everything. So I want to make sure everything is nice and neat. Pull the handle back. And then take your iron and give it a nice little press here. And we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and we are going to top stitch here on top. As you can see here, I finished top stitching. Now that I have done that, now you're going to take your other As you can see here, I finished top stitching. This is what it looks like. Let me flip it to the other side. And this is how you'll see the lining with the pocket. Let me flip it back. So now, what we need to do is take our other outer fabric. Now we're gonna flip this handle down and make sure this handle is down, and then we are going to align, make sure that the fabrics matches, and I'm going to start to clip them together. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and then we are going to stitch the outer fabric to attach it to the zipper. Here, make sure that your zipper is a little bit open before you start. So here I go. Back stitch. I am coming near where the zipper is. I am going to lift my foot presser, and now I can close that zipper up so I can continue to sew since the zipper is out of the way. Making sure everything is good. Okay, now we're going to back stitch to secure the thread to the lining and outer fabric. So we're done with this side, and let's go back to the table. As you can see, we finished stitching the outer fabric onto the zipper. Let me open it up, and this is what it looks like. We're getting there. Now we're going to attach, very important, I'm flipping it this side here. Now we are going to take our other lining and line it up here and get some fabric clips and start clipping, because we're also now, we're going to stitch here along here to make sure that the lining is now stitched to the fabric and the zipper. So let me just finish here. And let's take it to the sewing machine to stitch all the way down. Okay, I'm here. Okay, here at the sewing machine, and we are going to top stitch. I'm going to back stitch, secure the thread, and continue to sew. I'm going to move the handle out of the way. back stitch. And we finish attaching the lining. I'm sorry, we finished attaching the as you can see here, I finished stitching the lining to the zipper. Let me do some opening here to show you the next step. So this is what it should look like when you open it up. And let me show you the other side. Let me just open up the handles a little bit out. Okay, this is what it starts looking like. And the most important thing is now making sure that this is really opened. Take your iron and we're gonna iron this down. So you see what it looks like. Okay. And now we're going to take it to the sewing machine and then we are going to top stitch here all the way down. I finished top stitching the other side. I did not record it because I finished top stitching here the other side. I did not record it because it's the same process that we did with the other side. So once you have done the top stitching, now we're going to take both of the outer fabrics and slide the lining, and we're going to take our fabric clips here and I'm going to start to clip. So I just want to make sure that the zipper here is aligned. See how it's sandwiched? Hopefully you can see it here in the camera. It's nicely sandwiched. Use my clip. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Right over here. I'm just going to make sure that I'm going to open up the zipper here. Makes it easier. I'm going to just make sure that both of these side of here that you see here where we top stitch are aligned. And then I'm going to take a fabric clip and clip it together. And yeah, let me just make sure that I have the zipper open. Make sure you have the zipper open. Now that I have that clip here on both ends, I am going to take more fabric clips and make sure that everything lines and start clipping. Okay, for here in this area, I'm going to make sure that I have at least 4 inches opening. And I'm going to mark it here with my marker. Let's make it about 5 inches just to make sure I'm able to get it through. So make sure that it's a 5-inch opening. And I'm just going to clip here and clip here, and then I'm going to take my sewing pins to remind me this is where I stop sewing. I don't pass this area here. So take it to the sewing machine, sew here all the way straight down here, in these areas right over here. And this is where we end up finishing. Okay, we're here at the sewing machine, and I am starting here, as you see, where I marked this with the safety pin. I removed the, not the safety pin, but the sewing pin. And I'm going to start to sew, back stitch, I'm coming to the end, and I'm finishing it, back stitch, and we're done. I finished stitching these area around the fabric here and left the opening here so we can turn the fabric inside out. Next, I'm going to show you the other step that we need to do. So the next step we're going to do is we are going to, of course, create these box corners. As you see, I already created in advance. I used my grid here as my guide, and I took the ruler and measured it 1/2 inch and made this marking over here with my marker pen over here. So do the same thing, measure 1.5 inch for each of these corners. Do the same thing, clip them, make a line, and then we're going to take it to the sewing machine. So we're at the sewing machine, and I'm going to use the line mark that I made to use as a guide to sew the box corner here. Back stitch and back stitch, and we are done. So make sure that you do the same thing to the other corners of this fabric. As you can see here, I finished stitching and creating the box corner for all 4 of them. Next, take a pair of scissors And we are going to trim the excess. Make sure that you don't trim it too close to where we made the markings and we stitched. So cut all 4. Make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, once we finish trimming off the extra fabric from the corners, now we are going to turn the fabric inside out. Let me get my little corners. As you can see, it forms a nice little box corner, bottom, and also for the lining too. So I'm just getting my hands in here. Okay, next I am going to pull out the lining. Why? Because we are going to sew the opening over here. You can slip stitch it by hand if you prefer, but I'm going to be using the sewing machine, and I am going to clip here. Making sure. I have clipped the opening, so we're going to take it to the sewing machine and sew to close it up. Let's start stitching to close this opening. I'm just removing some of the fabric clips out of the way. Back stitch. Back stitch. And we are done sewing the opening. We finished closing the opening of the bag. Now we are going to put the lining back into the bag. And this is what it looks like. You see the pocket is here, and I'm gonna close the zipper. Look how nice it looks. And so I just want to make sure I'm giving you a good close-up look of what it looks like with the pocket. And we are finished making this tote bag with a zipper on top. So we are done. Look how nice it looks with the box corner in the bottom. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make a zipper tote bag. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and your family. And if you're not a subscriber to my channel, click on the subscribe red button and also click on the bell. So when you click on the bell, YouTube will notify you when I upload a new video. And also in the description box below, I provided the list of materials needed and also the link where you can purchase the materials. So have a good day. Bye.